Hey everyone, this is Corrina from Soundiron, and today we will be doing something a little bit different from the typical composition videos that I have done in the past. We'll mainly be taking a look at our recent update on Cymbology, but the nature of this library has a lot of sound effects, so I thought it would be relevant to make something that was more environmental and something that you could throw in the background, say, in a video game when you're trying to create the atmosphere of, say, like the forest or the cave without necessarily having melodic content involved. So at this point, imagine you see a robot enter an elevator that goes many feet underground, which seems like an eternity in order to reach its workshop. The thing I really love about this instrument library is that it reminded me of a composition class I took in college where we learned about this term called musique concrète. And basically what it is you take recorded sounds and you kind of collage them. But I really loved how these sounds which are just from cymbals or, from bowing cymbals, you can get an array of interesting textures and sounds that you can now piece together to create your own world, essentially. And so let's take a look. I'd like to talk a little bit about why I chose certain sounds. When I first started playing through these sounds, there were some that were very screechy, and the screechy ones, I think, typically give me the impression of like a horror film or something a little bit more scary and ominous. And, going down an elevator many feet is a little bit scary. If it collapses, if the tunnel collapses, if you get stuck, who's going to help you? Yes, but at the same time, we are under the assumption that this elevator will reach its destination. And so I think that the really screechy, high-pitched ones are a little bit overkill in terms of sound effects. And so the ones I chose tended to be a little bit more flickery and fluttery. For example, I'll just kind of play through some of these. So the first one that pops up is kind of a scratch of sorts. And I kind of really liked mixing and matching textures that felt closer to the ear and farther away from the ear. It just kind of gives a slightly more dimensional feeling to the environment where there is depth of field. So I just used one of the stock options that we have, which in the Frozen category, and I chose Warped Crash. And then I panned it a little bit to the left using an Ableton delay. And this is what that sounds like. I liked how it kind of sounded like something was rocking. Like, I imagine like as the elevator is going down, maybe there's some like hidden wires or like tethers that are keeping this elevator intact, and so they might creak every now and then as you pass by it. And then the next sound I used was Gusty Whisper. And Gusty Whisper is one of our new custom effects, and it utilizes Frozen and Brass Bell. It's not like a compact thing where the tunnel is only as wide as the elevator, but there's airspace. And so there's moments where there's like the wind moving through the tunnel. And so I thought it was nice to give that feeling of like movement and air. And then another one I chose was Flutter Signal, just to accentuate a creak in the system. To give it that metallic, industrial, slight, subtle industrial feel. And then the next one is ominous rumble. If you're wearing headphones, you will probably be able to hear it, but otherwise it might be too low of a frequency for you to hear. I like that sound because it kind of gives like a delay to the cave feel that we've been going for so far, and so it's just like a different texture in a different place. And then the last one I used was nicely suspicious. And I think this one was the one that I tried to use to give a slightly more spooky vibe, just to add a little bit of emotion or character to the environment. Then the next question is like, where and when do you put these sorts of sounds? I think what I ended up doing was I just really tried to imagine myself in that environment, and then I would close my eyes, and as the ambiance was playing, you just get a gut feeling that, oh, what if I played it now? Oh, what if I played it there? And then going back and listening to it, you can check to see if it was too busy or if something still feels missing in a certain part. Trust your gut, trust your ears, because we've walked through a lot of environments in our life. And I think naturally and organically, we can kind of feel when and where these sounds could pop up. And then just to add the final little touch, it was, just for fun, I decided to resample an old demo that I made for Bontastic and turned it into elevator music. And so this is what that sounds like. I give it a telephone feel because as the viewer, we're outside of the elevator. And so from a sound design perspective, the intercom is actually a lot more muffled. If we were sitting in the elevator with the robot, then the music would be actually louder than the outside environment. And so when it comes to designing environments, it's important to think about where the camera is and where are we as the audience standing from. So that's pretty much it with this demonstration. I think it's always helpful to understand a little bit about how sound effects work in the context of video games and in film, especially as a film composer, because it will help you decide where and how to create phrases and cues in order to align with those things. I hope that this was helpful, and I'll see you in the next one.